Good morning. It is Thursday morning. We hope and believe, and I pray. No, it is Thursday. You've heard the term Latino, Latina, Hispanic, but what about the term LatinX? I remember I first heard of the term LatinX while I was a Spanish teacher, and I said, well, this doesn't follow any of the grammar rules of Spanish, so what is going on here? We're going to talk about that with a real native, I hope, native Spanish speaker. We're going to find out. We're going to put that to the test. But we're going to figure out, what do Latino people think of LatinX and what is going on with the left and why are they pushing this on people? I think it's gender neutral, but all that and more in just a second. I'm Jonathan Koeppel, and this is Logic and Common Sense.
How do you get canceled? Two genders have a sense of morality. Is this real life? I'm Jonathan Koeppel, and you're listening to Logic and Common Sense.
For those of you just joining us, I'm Jonathan Koeppel, Louisiana's favorite fire teacher, and we're here live on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube multiple times a week, giving hot takes on breaking news, talking with special guests about real life issues affecting present-day society, and diving into relevant topics that aren't always easily understood, just like the topic of today. Well, I want to ask you, if you haven't done so already, like, comment, share. Let's get as many people to see this as possible. It's going to be an awesome conversation with my friend Brianda Carrasco, and we're going to bring her on right now. Hello, Brianda.
Hey.
How are you doing this morning?
Doing great. Excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, that's awesome. This has been a long time in the making. Maybe, I don't know. I think you had seen me on
Chingo Blings.
the Red Pill Tamales. That was right. That was those guys are awesome. I really like Pete and Rob. So I wanted to get you to just introduce yourself. Who are you? What do you do? Where are you from?
Okay. Well, my name is Brianda Carrasco. I'm the owner of a supplement company, BCN, and my family is from Mexico. I was actually born and raised here in Texas, but my family is Mexican from Chihuahua.
Oh, that's really nice. From Chihuahua. So, ¿qué tal el español? ¿Hablas muy bien?
Sí, el español fue mi primer lenguaje. Mi mamá no habla inglés, entonces todavía lo practico con ella.
Oh, okay. So it was your first language.
Yes.
That is really neat. So with the supplement companies, is that something you started recently? Have you always been into that, or what is that all about?
Yeah, so I started it during COVID. So before COVID, I started doing pageants in 2016. So I used to compete. I competed in 2016, and then that's actually when I started working out. Before that, I didn't like it. But then once I started doing it, saw the results, I got addicted to it. After I won a local pageant, I did a fitness competition. And then I just had girls message me asking me if I sold the protein. And back then I didn't. So I was actually on a Telemundo reality show, kind of like Survivor / Ninja Warrior.
What?
So so the show's called Exatlón. And I was on there for 2 weeks. I was not ready for it, but it was fun.
What was it called? Did you say
Exatlón?
Exatlón. What does that even mean?
I was going to say, I don't know what it means. That's what the show is called.
And y'all had to survive?
Yeah, we went to the Dominican Republic. We were isolated. They took our phones, our makeup. Like, we were out there, and we would just compete every day. We would do obstacle courses.
And it was all pageant girls, or?
No, it was, so they chose me because I was different from the other athletes. I was, fitness competition, pageant girl. And then they had parkour athletes. They had UFC fighters. That's how I met Jorge Masvidal. We were on the show together.
Wow.
Olympics, gymnasts, all kinds of people.
Wow, that is cool. That is really neat. Well, I kind of want to dive into this topic and get your take on it, since you and your family are from Mexico. Not really. It wasn't that long ago that white people on the left, liberal folks, all of a sudden came up with this term Latinx out of the blue. It just showed up on TV one day. It was in news articles, and people were referring to Spanish people as Latinx. When that first happened, what did you think about it?
Well, when I first heard it, I think it was on Instagram. Because I don't watch the news anymore. It just upsets me. So,
Yeah.
and I was like, what is that? And then I looked into it and it was, gender neutral. And I was just like, really? Like, I just thought it was so dumb. And then I've never heard anyone actually use it. Like, none of my Hispanic friends or family members,
Right.
when we talk about it, it's just to make fun of it. It's not a term that we're like, oh, yeah,
So it's
it's so
funny.
great.
It's funny you say that because I found a video. I'm going to share it,
Hmm.
and it talks about how no Latinos actually use Latinx. Believe it or not, how crazy is that? All right, let's see if we can get this going. You should be able to hear it.
And Hispanics made up roughly half of Texas's population growth. Hispanics also tend to skew Democratic by roughly 2-1. Now, that growth could equal a lot more voting power for Democrats. But a new poll out today sheds more light on how these voters see themselves. Maybe you've heard this term lately. It's right there on that chart. LatinX. It's meant as a gender-inclusive term instead of Latino or Latina. But if anyone supports the new term, it seems most Hispanics do not. According to the poll, only 2% of US-born Hispanics describe themselves as Latinx, 2%. But 71% say they prefer the term Hispanic. And 40% say they are bothered or offended by the term Latinx.
Okay, so wait, that was our friend Ramos, but we're not going to listen to what she has to say because she wrote a book. She wrote a whole book on Latinx and why.
Oh, did she?
Yeah, it's who's Latinx, why we're identified. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, just she needs to just go somewhere with that. But I mean, does that surprise you that a lot of people are just straight up offended by it?
It doesn't surprise me because it's like, honestly, when I saw it, I thought that's dumb. First of all, like, we wouldn't call ourselves that. Why is another ethnicity choosing a name for us that we don't even want? And then in Spanish, the X, is
Right.
like saying like, oh, eso es X, like that's nothing. So that's like so it's like
Wow.
just an X, like
Right, like a slang to
important.
like cancel something out, right?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, like something that's not important, like X, like whatever.
That's what happens. So I speak Spanish, but I'm not a native Spanish speaker. So every once in a while, I'll translate something that doesn't turn out how I want it to be translated, or say something that doesn't come across the same. But a lot of times, especially in politics or with corporations, they'll translate something that they think makes sense in the native language. If they're going from English to Spanish, they're thinking of the gender stuff, not even realizing that everybody's saying, wait, is this like cancel Latinos? Like, what are we X? And I kind of thought it was racist at first. Just that was my first thought about it. And I asked my aunt, she's from Honduras. They're like, what? They don't even know what that is. Like, what is a Latinx? What is that? Have your parents ever talked about it?
No. And my mom, she's very traditional. So very traditional Mexicans, they're not worried about the whole gender neutral movement. They're like, if you're a man, you're a man. If you're a woman, you're a woman. Like, that's it.
So like when it comes to family values, now I don't know if this has anything to do with why a lot of Latino people are starting to vote more conservative. We actually saw this in Florida, where Florida was not red and now it's red. And I think the Cubans had a lot to do with that. But
Probably.
what do you think about, like, what are the family values that you would consider as like Latino family values, especially if we just focused on Mexican culture, your family type of stuff? And what does that look like? And do you think that lines up with the left and the gender ideology and the rainbows and all of that?
Not at all. So if we talk about like traditional Mexicans, the values are God first, then family, and then community. So a lot of Hispanics, traditional Hispanics, are Christians. So a lot of what the left says doesn't go with what the Bible says. So I personally I didn't know anything about politics until COVID. That's when like I had time to sit down and like actually do research. And when I found out what each side stands for, I was like, why are so many Hispanics Democrat if the values don't align with who we are? So it was interesting to me.
Wow, that's a good question. I've actually asked that myself. So I've spent a lot of
Mhm.
time in Central America. I grew up in the New Orleans area. There's a ton of Spanish people here, legal and illegal. And I've treated everybody the same. I prefer you come here legally if you're here, but whatever. I can't do anything about the guys and their families that are here illegally. But I've met a lot of Spanish people growing up, a lot of people from Central America, Mexico, South America. And I always noticed that family values were a big deal.
Mhm.
And even traveling to like Nicaragua and Honduras and Panama, I said, wow, okay, these people seem at face value. My initial thought is they seem like they would lean more conservative.
Mhm.
Now, when it comes to being in the United States and voting, traditionally, a lot of Spanish speaking families, Hispanic families, Latino families have voted Democrat. And I've always
Mhm.
scratched my head. I said, why? Why is that? Because the Democrats don't support a lot of family values. They really push
Mhm.
for, what I would call this entitlement mentality, wokeness, crazy gender stuff. I mean, that's the big one. And then
Yeah.
changing your kids' perspective on life. So a lot of the times, the left wants to teach kids values instead of letting the families teach values, and I think that
Mhm.
does not resonate with Spanish-speaking families at all.
No, but what I think happened is somebody told them Republicans are racist, and they didn't do their research. So and I've talked to a lot of Mexicans who,
Yeah.
as soon as they hear, I used to work with this guy, right? And he has a good job, he's not like just came from Mexico, doesn't know anything. No, he's lived here for a while. And he was saying, "Oh yeah," he was like, "The lady at the office is real nice. She's Mexican, but she's Republican. But even though she's Republican, she's still nice to us." And I was like, "What?"
That's weird.
So they have like this idea that all Republicans are racist.
Wow.
And I think that's why they vote Democrat, because somebody told them that, I guess, white Republicans hate them and they don't want to support that.
Wow. You could be
Mhm.
right. I know that the left says that a lot to all the different minorities. Or I don't even know if
Yeah.
I don't know if Spanish people are a minority anymore, because everywhere I go when I travel, like Spanish people are taking over. They got
Yeah.
they got taquerias, they got tamale stands. I mean, whatever stores, gas stations, you name it. Spanish people are just they hustling, making it happen, and taking
Mhm.
over. Um, so I don't even
Yeah,
know if
but
that's a minority anymore.
yeah, no, that's also what happened with Trump. Like I have a friend and she voted Biden. And I thought it was so weird because she's very Christian. And I was like, okay, I was like, whatever. And then she was saying how Trump was so racist and how he didn't like Mexicans. And then I guess after Biden won and she's seen like the mess that he made and she like did more research, she like came the other day and she was like, I voted for Trump now.
Wow,
Outside of herself.
that's funny.
Yeah.
I wonder, like, what goes on that makes people think that the conservatives are this like redneck racist group of white people.
I think the media has a lot to do with it. I feel like Univision and Telemundo do lean to the left, so
Mhm.
they're gonna show them, and they don't. I don't want to say they don't know any better, but the Spanish channels are telling them these things. Like my mom hates watching the news in Spanish. She gets so mad because like she sees through the BS. So I'm like, just turn it off. I'm like, don't watch it. But a lot of people who don't maybe haven't done their research, they're just they're trusting Telemundo because Telemundo speaks their language.
Language.
Yeah. And Telemundo's saying whatever the heck they want. So
Do you think it would be beneficial to have more conservative voices that speak Spanish, communicate, I don't know, news and pop culture in Spanish? Do you think that would be something that would help?
I feel, yeah, for sure. Yeah, because most of like I said, they usually either they're watching Univision or they're watching Telemundo, and that's who they rely on. And if they said it, it has to be true.
So,
So
okay, so you know how we have like on the internet, we have conservative influencers. Let's just focus on the English speaking world. You have people like
okay.
myself, people like Chingo Bling,
Hmm.
all these different what I would call conservative influencers, conservative voices.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how up to date you are, like on the Spanish speaking side of pop culture on the internet and what's happening there. But do you think that there are conservative influencers, conservative talk shows, conservative podcasts in Spanish like there are in English?
To be honest, I don't know.
Yeah.
Nothing comes to mind. So maybe something not that big. I mean, hopefully, I'm sure there's somebody out there.
Well, I know Los Peachy Boys, they're not political, but they take some jabs at the Democrats. They're Cubans.
Really?
And their podcast does really well. It's hilarious. Not always appropriate, but very funny. And that's the only one that I can think of. And they've been to like Mar-a-Lago with Trump, and they've done. I know I've seen them with Ron DeSantis, but I don't know that there's a lot of content being out in Spanish on the conservative side.
Yeah, because I feel a lot of. So I know Chingo Bling talks about it, but if you look at like Mexican celebrities in Hollywood, they lean to the left. So the people who follow them are being influenced by what they say. So I honestly can't think of a Latino conservative who's out there speaking Spanish about this that comes to mind.
Maybe I'll have to start doing that. Start watching. Yeah. So I got to get my accent better. It's been a while because I haven't had anybody to speak with in a bit, but you know, I could hold my own, make it happen. So, okay. So I noticed Latin America in general leans very left in politics, right? You have a lot, like so many dictatorships in different countries. Even what's going on in Brazil right now, that's very strange. I don't know what's going to come of that, but maybe that has to do with the media influence leaning more left, because you have a lot of these big powers in Latin America who are very socialist, very progressive, maybe not on the gender stuff, but on like government dependency. And I know that has a lot, that plays a big role. And then the media always pushes what the government's pushing. Like I know in Nicaragua, they're going to promote on TV, like everything the government says is true. This is like the law. This is the best information you could get. And it's all propaganda. And from what I've seen, and this is just news in general, at this point, all the news on TV is propaganda. I don't know if you feel the same way, but when I see TV, it's just like, wow, I feel like I'm being sold something, but there's no product to buy. It's like watching a sales commercial 24/7 of propaganda for political gain.
Yeah, I feel that way too. That's why I said I don't even watch the news anymore, because after whenever I started doing my research in politics was whenever George Floyd, because I was like, okay, yeah, I understand a Black man was killed. I understand, like it's sad, blah, blah, blah. But it was so blown out of proportion, I felt like, that I was like, why? That he's not the only Black man who has died. This isn't the only like injustice that has happened. Why is this particular case so big? So then I just started doing more research. I found, my headphone fell. Give me a second.
Sure.
I found Candace Owens, and I started listening to her, and I found a lot of conservatives on online, and what they were saying made sense. What the news was saying didn't make sense to me, but what the conservatives were saying, I was like, oh, okay, yeah. I was like, it makes sense now. So after you see it, you can't unsee it, I feel like. Because before that, I hadn't picked up on it. But then after I went and I did my own research, I started listening to them, I was like, it makes sense. And then every time I see the news now, you can't unsee it or unhear it.
Yeah, it's wild. I actually went to the George Floyd site. I was there not long after he died and all the riots and stuff. And we went there for a Juneteenth event. Okay. And my friend Andy, he's half Cuban, he's half Honduran, and he got invited to do like a Christian rap concert at the site, because this guy, Dr. Charles, had set up a stage on top of milk crates, and the guy felt that he needed to do like a church service every day to try to calm down people, and so he did an all-day church service set up on this little milk carton stage right at the site where everybody was wilding out and protesting, and they brought out speakers. They had like a DJ and stuff, and they tried to keep the peace in that area for a bit. But we came out there, and on the Juneteenth day, there had to be 3,000 or 4,000 people in that little intersection where George Floyd died. And my friend Andy's like sharing his story. He used to be a Latin King gangster, and he's talking about unity and love and this and that. And all these people are really getting emotional and really listening. And I saw a camera crew. I said, wow, wouldn't it be so cool if the news came and checked this out, what we're doing? Because this is like peace, and like over there is like the riots, and it's amazing that, something good happening. Well, it was Telemundo. And so I said, oh, great. So I started speaking to them in Spanish, like, hey, can you cover this? What's going on over here by the stage? It's an ex-gangster, and he's trying to tell people to, be kind to each other. And they're all like really, listening in, and they're giving hugs. And it's so beautiful. Could you capture this? It's like, oh, no, ya es tiempo irme. Like, whoa, it's already time to go. Like, what? And the whole time we had these thousands of people literally behind the camera crew, but they're focused on this little flower with a picture of George Floyd's face that they're just getting for footage for whatever reason. And I said, oh, so you guys, it is true. You guys are the fake news. And then they, of course, they packed up and left. That for me was the moment I realized that everything Trump was saying about the media was right. Like, they were fake. They don't want to cover the truth. They don't want to show you everything that's really going on. That was a crazy experience. And I don't know if you had a chance to see Candace Owens. She did the video, The Biggest Lie Ever Sold. And it was about BLM. It's really cool. I saw
I might have.
It's on Daily Wire, but it goes through the lies of BLM and how the media just played America and the world to get donations. I mean, you're talking lots and lots of money, and it just all got laundered, all of it.
That is crazy.
Yeah. So
I don't know.
If you could give a suggestion to conservative people to win over more Latinos, what would that suggestion be?
I think just highlight what the values are. So like whenever I see things that I think are dumb, like LatinX, like I try not to give it exposure. Like I try not to post about it. Sometimes I'm like, I see something, I'm like, that's funny, I share it. But if I don't agree with something or I think something's dumb, I try not to highlight it because I'm like, these people need to be ignored. Like we don't, like instead of focusing on the things we don't want, let's focus on the things we do want. So I think, but I do understand why people bring it up because it's something that if the other side's talking about it, so then it's like we have to talk about it too and give, a different perspective. Because if that's all they're hearing, then that's going to think that's what reality is, or that's the only thing. So I think just focus more on the good things, who we are, what we do, and I think people will come around and like understand that more. Like focusing the energy on what we do want.
Okay. Yeah.
I feel like because that's kind of what I've been learning. Like I recently made a video about making a love list to help people, who are out there looking. And something that I learned when you do that is you don't write the things you don't want. So like, for example, if you don't want the person that you're going to be with to already have kids, don't put it on there because then you're calling that or you're putting energy into that. So I feel like it's the same thing with anything we do in life. And then and I think there's like even a Christian song that says like if we only talk about the things we don't agree with, how are they going to know what we do agree with or who we are or what we stand for? So I think just highlighting, hey, we believe the same, we have the same values, and then maybe people will start to understand.
Yeah, that's a good suggestion. Really cool. Thanks for sharing that. Well, we're going to wrap this up. It was really awesome talking to you finally after all this time, Brianda, and I'm glad we got to do this. Appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
You are very welcome. And for everybody watching, please like, share, write a comment. Brianda, where can people find you on the internet? Do you exist on the internet?
I do. So I'm as Brianda.Carrasco on Instagram. I don't really use Facebook, but Brianda Carrasco as well. Just my name. You just look up my name. Yeah.
Very cool. All right. Well, again, appreciate you coming on. This was really fun. See you soon.
Bye.